Hi, guys. So every week I ask Brad to bring 5 stocks that are on his watch list. Not buy list, watch list. Stocks he's got his eye on. Obviously, this week's earnings. Normally, it's just any catalyst coming up. So let's dive right into it. Brad, what is the first stock you have?
So the first stock for me this week is going to be none other than Sam. But the Boston Beer Company, as we all know, we just kind of recently discussed, was that Sam has had a really tough go at it. It's down 65% from its highs after an abysmal quarter last quarter and a really poor outlook. Some interesting notes here. They're expected to post quarterly earnings of $4.60 per share, which represents a year-over-year change of actually a loss of 25%, almost 25%, not quite, but pretty much there. Revenues are expected to be around 4.96 million, up 8.8% from a year ago. If they surprise or make any kind of mention of hospitality really coming back and bringing sales back for them, I think that's going to be interesting. And one thing to note here, if investors are expecting a huge miss or huge letdown and the stock continues to go down lower as we lead into earnings, but then they come in and surprise us with something like that, I think that Sam could be a good one to watch for. You take a look at the chart here, as I mentioned, a huge drop off. So, risk reward is actually good here. Fat Man Zoom, you always talk about asymmetrical trades. I think that this one could be a great one. Even just getting in where it closed at 511, and then maybe putting a stop in around 496, 497, I think probably makes some sense. So I think Sam could potentially surprise a lot of people, especially with so much negative sentiment surrounding around this. And it may be one to take a closer look at this week.
Yeah, to me, it seemed like a picture perfect options leaps opportunity. You talk about a stock that has huge upside. I don't think it's going anywhere. So looking at the long-term perspective, but I don't know short-term what's going to happen. Leaps just makes a lot of sense because who knows? It could go down a little bit more. But do I think it's going to be above 500 a year from now? Yes. And we're already seeing in the payrolls, hospitality is finally leading the sector as far as jobs coming back as far as that's concerned. That's been a challenge for hospitality. So if we can get hospitality back where it needs to be, Boston Beer Company stands to benefit. And if we can get ahead of that trend, you're all better for it. So when it does decide to reverse, it's going to come back quickly, I think, because overall it's a great company, obviously a great product. I've talked about the fall is a great time for Sam in general. So I think there's two things at play here, or sort of both ways you can look at it. One is, I'm wondering if the CEO just tempers expectations just because such a horrible quarter last quarter.
Yeah.
And so is he just more cautious as far as outlook's concerned, or because it was such a horrific quarter last quarter, is there more optimism and do they raise outlook? There's no doubt in my mind that they're going to perform really well leading into the end of the year, especially because seltzer is more of a summer product anyway. So if you were worried about that, it's a summer product.
Yeah.
And so I'm interested to hear about the outlook and how that plays.
I think it's going to be very interesting to see how this whole stock reacts, and we're going to be live for that. That's after hours play, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we after hours on Thursday. So make sure you guys are sticking around for that one. My next one is going to be very interesting as well, Fat Man Zoom.
Mm-hmm.
If I told you that the projected earnings per share on this particular stock was $2.21, which represents year-over-year growth of 5,425%. But their PE ratio was still at 12. Would you believe me?
That feels like Crocs.
It's not Crocs.
Is it? Is it?
It's Cleveland Cliffs.
Oh, okay.
It's Cleveland Cliffs. They have earnings on Friday, and the company said on October 11th, we talked about this, the acquisition they had for their scrap metal company, and the name just Ferrous Processing. That's another good acquisition for them. They have just really started to kill it, and obviously the rise in materials certainly helps them out. If you guys don't know Cleveland Cliffs, they're a steel maker. Some people kind of confuse them. They don't they're not known for mining iron ore. They're the more like flat steel and rolling steel and all that good stuff. So really great company. They just haven't had the love because it just hasn't been one of those sexy ones that a lot of people look at. Obviously, value's taken a back seat over the last decade. So we're looking at value stocks that have been beaten down, that have super low PEs. This is one, even though it's had a pretty decent run over the last 12 months. I think that this continues to rock and roll. So they have earnings, again, $2.21 per share. You can take a look at the chart here, and it actually looks pretty solid. You can see that I have some calls on here as well. And it just briefly fell out of its trend, and it started to work right back into it. I think that we could potentially see, a nice little run going into earnings on Friday on this too. Given the way that futures are looking, I think that's certainly possible. Watch for this to move up above 2265, which is the 50-day moving average, and maybe try to retest the top of this ascending channel here on Cleveland Cliffs.
Yeah, that's what I'm interested in potentially getting into, but certainly with the channel, it looks like a good opportunity to try out. So I love Friday earnings. I just really do. I mean, I prefer Thursday because then you can see the move, but Friday, I mean, it's going to be exciting. Obviously, those are pre-market. So to me, it seems like a great one to potentially play the run up and maybe a breakout. We'll see how it goes. Earnings always 50-50. So we'll see what's next.
Absolutely. So before I get into the next one, guys, first of all, I need to hit the thumbs up button. I certainly would appreciate it if you guys hit the like button just to show support. But if you're enjoying some of these stocks that we're showing you that are worth watching, I'd encourage you to check out the join button next to subscribe. If you want to become part of the Chaos Crew, join the channel. You get a watch list from us every single day. Gets into great detail on the stocks we're watching and why we're watching them. Not only that, but you also get access to trade alerts, my portfolio, as well as our Discord group, all kinds of other good stuff, and it's super cheap. I mean, it starts at $4.99 a month. You can't get any better than that. We provide all kinds of value just for a small amount of money to help support the channel and the studio you see around you. But Fat Man Zoom, the next one that I'm watching is Netflix. Netflix has earnings on Tuesday.
Mm-hmm.
And this will be interesting. And you brought this up. You brought up a pretty good point on Netflix last week when we were just talking about not necessarily about earnings, but Squid Game.
Yeah.
Bloomberg came out with an article, a news. They were talking about the 111 fans that they had, 111 million fans, that Squid Game has.
Mm-hmm.
I know this is just one show, right?
In the first 28 days.
Yeah, first 28. That's incredible.
Yeah.
They gave that show a valuation of $900 million.
Wow. That's incredible.
$900 million. And obviously Netflix has been one of the outperformers in the FANGs as of recent. Shout out Fat Man Zoom calling that one out over the summertime. When that got beaten down, it was the worst performing FANG stock in the summer. And now it's the best performing stock going into the fall. Moreover, I think that earnings are going to be really positive here. And we've talked about this. I think that, the more that we start to see shows come back, we've talked about some of our favorite shows. And so I think that this is going to be something that, even though it's gone up a lot, I think there's plenty of room for this to continue to go up.
Yeah. A couple of points I want to make. First off, side note, I just watched, it's on Apple TV, CSEE.
Yeah.
It's that show with Jason Momoa and David Bautista.
Oh yeah. Yeah. That dude is such a good looking man.
Jason Momoa.
Yeah.
He's
a beast.
It was awesome. If you like Last Kingdom, it's kind of in the same vein as that.
Okay.
It's sick. I binge watched 2 seasons in the 3 days. It's ridiculous. Anyway, here's what I'll say about Squid Game. Let me give some context. 111 million over the first 28 days. Second place on that list was Bridgerton with 86 million.
Yeah.
Blew it out of the water. Numbers blew it out of the water. So to give you guys some perspective, that's what we're dealing with as far as Squid Game's concerned. And there was an article out that kind of talked about how this sort of opens up for all streaming and, just the cost of production internationally is far cheaper than if you try to do it at home. So this bodes well for companies like Disney, Netflix as well. But here's the other thing I'll say, which we haven't heard people talk about yet, but I would bet anything I have that this will become a topic of conversation for Netflix. Online gaming, Netflix this year just started talking about basically they're entering into online gaming. is this not a perfect scenario where like their best shows they can turn into games? Squid Game, the game,
Oh yeah.
you parlay this $900 million asset. How much money could you make off a game? Arguably, you could probably make more. And that's perfect for an actual video game. So I can't be like the only one thinking about this idea. I've got to imagine Netflix had this in mind when they thought about online games, but these are logical. Like you have the proprietary rights for these shows, and then you can create games around it. It just seems like sort of the next evolution of streaming services and taking the titles that work well and then turning them into games. Squid Game as a game would be awesome.
Squid Game, the game.
Yeah, it would be sick. So you think about the value of this, and that costs nothing. Like when you think about it, because there's no actors, there's no nothing. Like you already have the licensing rights to create a game, and that can last. If that hits, it can last for a very long time. So huge upside. I love that stock.
Yeah, taking a look at the chart here. If this does have a little bit of a pullback, watch for that to take place around 620. And if it can't hold that area, it probably is more likely that it comes back to retest around 616. But man, this definitely looks like a potential breakout here. I think that if we can get this up above 650, then Netflix could really start the rip. And one of the catalysts could be those earnings that come out Tuesday after hours. My next one, Fat Man Zoom, is going to be Southwest. Now, I put Southwest in here, but really it could be any airline. Any of the big ones that we like. Delta, Southwest, United, they all have earnings this week. Or no, so Delta already had theirs, but United, Southwest, and I think American Airlines might be next week. So American Airlines is my least favorite, but you could take your pick with those. I think that Southwest, obviously it's had a rough go of it. There have been some hiring issues and that sort of thing, but the one thing that you can't take away from it is demand. And I think the labor issues, the labor shortages, are a fixable problem. And I think is when they can solve that problem, I think that's where Southwest will be fine, and some of the other airliners as well will be fine, as long as demand continues to stick around, which it's not going away anytime soon for the foreseeable future. Yeah. So Southwest, I think, is going to be one to certainly watch for. What I'm looking for on their earnings is to kind of give us an outlook. Have they been able to rectify this situation? Have they been able to solve some of the issues that we experienced over the last couple of weeks? And are they actually prepared for the holiday season? I think that I would think they'd have to come up with some sort of solution. And if they don't, then Southwest could have a rough week. But I'm betting on the fact that they do have a solution in the works, and they're going to solve this problem. It came down and tested that 50-day moving average and held just right at it on Friday. And so I think that we could potentially see a bounce, maybe leading into earnings themselves. Certainly after earnings could be very telling for Southwest as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I think as long as you know both sides of it, just being prepared. Southwest, these are actually the situations that we love. You have demand. This is not different than the semiconductor issue, right? Yeah. Like your lack of success really has nothing to do with you and more macro factors. And so, eventually the hiring will be figured out, and Southwest is a good company in general. I feel bad for the new CEO. Not only did you have some big shoes to fill, with Gary Kelly leaving, but now you're dealing with this issue right at the beginning. So not a great start for their new CEO. However, Southwest is going to be just fine, and look for them to sort of create some optimism around staffing, because that's going to be what a lot of the questions are going to be about, is all these cancellations. Like, what are you doing to address those?
Yeah, it's going to be big. It's going to be big. So that is the stock number 4. Stock number 5, Fat Man Zoom, is going to be nothing other than Crocs. Crocs is on number 5 on the list, and I know that it seems to be a fan favorite. It sounds like a lot of you guys are in it as well. Put a comment down below if you're in Crocs, or if you like Crocs. If you have a collection of them, let us know what you got. But Crocs has done really well over the last year. Mm-hmm. Here's an interesting stat. They've outperformed sales over Nike and Under Armour in the last year.
I mean, I've been waiting for you to come around in Crocs, and I mean, all I'm saying is, yeah.
It's crazy. It's crazy. And, not only that, the growth story is what I think is a little bit mind blowing. But you combine the growth story on top of the fact that they're reinvesting in their investors. They're buying stock back. We heard in their last investor meeting they're buying $500 million dollars worth of shares back. Maybe that even increases, but this earnings is definitely going to be interesting because we've heard so many problems with supply chains. Are they going to have enough inventory to be able to sustain demand leading into the holiday season? I actually just went on their website today and was just kind of poking around, and it looked like there was a lot that was sold out. So can we hear from them? Are they going to be able to take care of that problem? Is there any issue with that or not? We saw that Levi Companies was actually prepared for that. And is Crocs going to actually be prepared for that? Now, given the fact that this is a company that's experienced explosive growth before as far as a trending type of, shoe or clothing or retail product, that I would think that they've this isn't their first rodeo in this issue. So I think that they'll probably be fine. Looking at the stock itself, it looks like it's been bouncing back pretty well. And I think that we could see a pretty decent run up in the earnings on Crocs on Thursday morning. So we get up above the 50-day moving average and then back up above 147 and 148 area. I think that Crocs could potentially have a breakout. Those earnings that we see from them could be the catalyst that maybe sends this to all-time highs this week.
I talked about how you can make the argument that it's a better stock to be in than Nike, and it could potentially be a better brand than Nike when you look over the next 10 years. I know it sounds crazy because Nike's just been such a huge part of our life. I'm still incredibly bullish on Nike.
Yeah.
But how they're running their business and how they're executing, pretty phenomenal when you look at their earnings. However, Brad, the one thing I will say is I'm not as optimistic. The past two earnings, I've been extremely bullish on Crocs. I'm not as optimistic going into this because there is a possibility to talk about supply chain issues. That wouldn't surprise anybody. I just worry that the bar is set really high now. And for them, at some point, you become like a Tesla Apple situation where like we're just impossible to surprise you. And so I think we're getting close to that territory. But as housekeeping says, if they announce supply chain issues, if this drops, I'm going to scoop a lot of it. I'm in that boat where like it's in an interesting spot. It could go down to 115. It could drop as much as it could create new all-time highs. I think it's right in that middle ground. And this is as much of a coin flip as any earning stock, even if they beat. Yes. Even if they beat, because we expect them to beat, but the rate of growth is going to be my question. What are their expectations in the holiday season? But if they don't have supply chain issues, it's going to have a monster outlook as far as obviously the wintertime, the holiday season, and moving into next year. This is just an all-around dominant product. And this is the example of like you do something really, really well. Yeah. And there's just, I don't know where the ceiling is on this stock.
Gross margins, 61%.
It's crazy.
Operating margin is 30. Both better than Nike and Under Armour, by the way. The other thing is Nike's PE is 41, Crocs is 13.9.
Yeah.
So I hear you. I definitely think that there's something to be said as far as how much this has gone up. The growth story and the supply chain issues, which, I certainly had brought up too. But man, to think that this, can't keep going up. If you're in the camp that says that it can't keep going up, then take a closer look, because I think that there's potential for this to actually continue to go higher regardless, because you look at the comps to Under Armour, Nike, and what they're doing, and it's definitely a compelling story for sure.